He booked first class without thinking twice. His assistant handled the details, like always. His name, David Marlowe, was printed in bold on the boarding pass. Executive Vice President. Clean suit. Polished shoes. Eyes always scanning, but rarely pausing. Today was no different, until it was. He settled into the soft leather seat, legs stretched comfortably, glass of water untouched on the tray. Noise from the cabin trickled through, the laughter, the instructions, the occasional overhead bin slam. None of it mattered. His mind was already at work, running projections, catching up on quarterly gaps. Until he saw her. Down the narrow aisle, nearly lost in the shuffle, sat an older woman with a gentle slump in her shoulders. Thin, wiry hair tucked behind her ears. Worn brown coat folded neatly on her lap. She stared out the small window, unblinking. It was her. Mrs. Rayna. He blinked once, then again. She hadn't seen him. She wouldn't. She never looked up when people passed, not out of rudeness, just out of habit. Years of being invisible does that to a person. David remembered her. She worked in the company cafeteria. For decades, maybe more. Quiet, efficient, warm without ever being overly familiar. She wasn't the kind to complain. She just showed up, got things done, and remembered your name long after your promotion had made you forget hers. And now, here she was. Alone in economy. No one spoke to her. No one noticed. His stomach shifted. Not guilt, he'd done nothing wrong. But discomfort. The kind that sticks under your ribs and refuses to let go. He turned away, tried to focus on his tablet. Graphs. Charts. Forecasts. All of it blurred. His thumb froze above the screen. The number $75,000 stared back at him. His last bonus. 4. Leadership. He looked back again. She hadn't moved. Still facing the window. Still unseen. He stood up. The steward looked surprised as he stepped into the aisle. Sir, is everything all right? David nodded. Perfectly. He picked up his coat, his briefcase, and without another word, walked past rows of suits, tech entrepreneurs, influencers and analysts. Walked past all the curious eyes. Walked until he stopped beside her. Excuse me, he said quietly. She turned confused. Then smiled. David? He nodded. You don't belong here. She chuckled softly, not unkindly. I do today, he replied, placing his bag beneath the seat and sitting beside her. A pause. Then silence. Not awkward, not tense. Just unexpected. A few seats up, a younger man nudged his friend and pointed. That's Marlowe. What's he doing back here? David heard it. Ignored it. Mrs. Rayna looked over, brow furrowed. They'll think you lost your seat. Let them. Another pause. You could have just said hello, she said. I didn't want to just say hello. She didn't respond. She just gave a small nod, lips pressed together in a knowing line. David leaned back in the stiff economy seat, felt the absence of cushioning. The absence of separation. Of privilege. For once, he didn't miss it. I heard you retired, he finally said. 3 weeks ago. Quiet exit. Should have had a party. I didn't want one. Why not? She smiled again, smaller this time. Too many people clapping who don't even remember your name. That's not a party. That's noise. David exhaled through his nose, the edge of a laugh almost escaping. What are you doing on this flight? He asked. My sister's sick. Stage 4. I'm going to say goodbye. The words hit like a hammer. Simple. Honest. Heavy. I'm sorry. She's lived. We both have. I just wanted to get there while she still remembers me. He nodded. There was no playbook for that kind of loss. I almost didn't come, she continued. Ticket cost half my savings. He stared at her. Half. His own ticket had been comped by the company. She saw the look on his face and waved it off. Don't feel bad. I'm not a victim. Just a woman who learned how to stretch $1 better than most. He shook his head slowly. You gave more to that company than half the board. I gave enough. And I saw enough. The words hung in the air. David leaned in slightly. What do you mean? She hesitated. Let's just say, I've always paid attention. To what? People. Numbers. Patterns. He stayed quiet. There were things, she said, voice lower now. On the order sheets. In the ledgers. Names that didn't belong. Payments that didn't match the food supply. I mentioned it once. To Vu, old CFO. Before he retired. He smiled and said I shouldn't worry about grown-up business. David clenched his jaw. I stopped asking. But I kept watching. Another pause. David's heart beat a little faster. Mrs. Reyna, would you talk to someone about this? Officially? She shook her head. Too late now. I'm done. Just here to see my sister. But if it's real, I don't need recognition, David. I needed to do the right thing. I tried. I failed. That's life. He sat back. But his mind was racing. Noticing is a kind of leadership too. She looked over, as if sensing the storm behind his calm expression. You all right? He nodded. I'm more awake now than I've been in months. And in that moment he knew he hadn't switched seats to honor her. He had switched seats because she was the only one who had been watching. And everything was about to change. David didn't speak for a while. He watched her hands instead. Worn, freckled, fingers curled neatly around a paper napkin she hadn't used. Hands that had carried trays, balanced pots, fixed broken things no one else noticed. Hands that didn't tremble, even now. You ever wonder, she said, how many people it takes to keep a place standing? David nodded. More than the ones in the boardroom. She smiled faintly. Good. You're not blind like the rest. He turned slightly. Why didn't you push harder? Make noise? I did once. Got silence back. You don't ask twice when the room's full of closed doors. She paused. But that doesn't mean you stop paying attention. He studied her face. Calm, weathered. Not bitter. Not angry. Just done with being ignored. I used to collect supplier slips, she continued. Copied them for the food waste tracking. But I kept noticing this one vendor popping up, Greenspan Solutions. Their deliveries never matched. 500 pounds of chicken? Came in one box. I logged it. Over and over. David sat still. I gave it to Carl, your former CFO. He said I misread the numbers. Told me to go back to soup ladles. That tracked. Carl was smart, smug, and left the company too fast, with a golden parachute and a non-disclosure. I stayed quiet, she said. Started taking photos. Not for revenge. Just in case someone smart finally asked the right question. David's mind replayed emails, approvals, system logs. Greenspan. It had been there. Buried in budgets, hidden under innocuous labels. The only reason no one caught it. No one thought to check the kitchen. You kept all of this? He asked. In a folder. USB drive. In my locker until I left. David's throat tightened. Can I see it? I didn't bring it. I'm going to see my sister, not audit a corporation. Do you trust me? Her eyes held his. I trust that you sat back here when you didn't have to. David nodded. He meant it. All of it. And suddenly his trip wasn't about expansion talks or partnership deals. It was about something smaller, but more important. She taught me things, Reyna said. My sister. Always said the smallest cracks are where the rot starts. People ignore them, and then wonder why the roof caves in. David swallowed. I'll fix it. She tilted her head. That's not your job, is it? It is now. Then watch who tries to stop you. The words struck deep. David looked out the window. Clouds passed below, quiet and indifferent. Meanwhile, in an office hundreds of miles away, people who claimed leadership ignored women like Raina every day. And they were vulnerable to exactly the kind of rot she just described. He thought about who had signed off on those invoices. Carl, obviously. Maybe others. Someone still there. Someone comfortable. Someone counting on nobody asking. I want to see that drive, David said. I'll send it. When I get home. He gave her a card. Personal number. No company title. Just his name. Call me. She folded it, tucked it in her coat pocket. I always wondered if any of you upstairs ever really saw us. We didn't. That's on me. And now? Now I see more than I want to. Good, she said. Now don't look away. The plane began its descent. Announcements played overhead. Passengers stretched, adjusted, reached for their bags. The illusion of hierarchy reassembled itself, rows of weary professionals brushing past each other, each eager to return to their roles, their importance. David stayed seated. He let everyone else stand. Raina beside him didn't move either. When the aisle cleared, he stood, lifted her bag down, and waited as she adjusted her coat. Let me know when you're back, he said. I will. They walked toward the gate. She went left. He paused. One final glance. She didn't look back. He turned toward his connection, mind racing. If she was right, and every instinct told him she was, this wasn't about bad paperwork. It was about ethics. Trust. The kind that broke companies from the inside. He opened his phone. Texted his assistant. Pull every file tied to Greenspan Solutions. Priority. Quietly. He didn't owe Raina anything. But that wasn't the point. He owed the company the truth. And someone finally paying attention to the invisible cracks. Someone like her. Someone like him, finally awake. David didn't sleep that night. The hotel was quiet, executive suite comfortable, but his mind kept circling the same question: how deep did it go? Greenspan Solutions. A ghost vendor buried in plain sight. A fake company feeding off real budgets, approved by real people, ignored by everyone too busy to notice. Except her. He sat with his laptop in his lap, a glass of untouched scotch beside it, and stared at the numbers. Dozens of transactions. Each looked harmless on its own. $7,200 here, $13,800 there, spread over quarters, massed under catering, facility upgrades, staff appreciation events. Perfect cover. Not large enough to set off automatic alerts. But consistent. Predictable. Sloppy even. He filtered by vendor. There it was. 63 entries. All under $15,000. Just under the threshold for mandatory secondary approvals. Classic manipulation. He leaned forward. The payments started about 18 months ago, around the time Carl got promoted. And they stopped, right after Carl left. Coincidence was off the table. David's jaw tightened. He sent the files to a personal drive, encrypted it, and locked the folder behind Duofactor. This wasn't just mismanagement. This was theft. Long-term, structured, and possibly collaborative. Someone else had to be in on it. Carl didn't do manual entries. Someone processed these invoices. Someone approved the payouts. He opened a separate spreadsheet. Cross-referenced initials, time-stamps, logged-in accounts. 4 names kept appearing. One of them was currently the head of operations. Another was a regional VP. Both had glowing performance reviews. Both sat in quarterly board meetings. Both had voted last month to cut lower-tier staff bonuses due to budgetary strain. David closed the laptop. He stood up, walked to the window, and stared out at the empty city. Lights flickered. People moved beneath them like shadows. Systems ran. Assumptions stayed unchecked. This was how things fell apart, not in fire, but in negligence. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Found more. Same vendor, different departments. Forwarding now. He tapped the screen. New entries. IT upgrades, supply closet replenishment, even holiday gifts. All tagged with the same dummy name. Different codes. Different project leads. This wasn't one man's con. It was a pipeline. One hidden in routine. He sat back down. This was bigger than Carl. Bigger than anyone he could confront in a single meeting. He needed leverage. He needed proof strong enough that even legal couldn't bury it. And he needed to move fast. Because if Raina had noticed, and he had noticed, there was a chance someone else was already watching. Or worse, someone had noticed him noticing. The next morning, he called in a favor. A friend in compliance owed him for shielding him during a merger audit. He didn't give details. Just asked for quiet eyes on Greenspan's incorporation status, tax filings, and shell structure. By noon, he had his answer. Greenspan didn't exist. Not legally. Not in the state registry. The payments had been funneled into a personal holding account under a third-party firm in Delaware, then rerouted to private wallets overseas. Offshore laundering, cloaked in expense forms. He stared at the name attached to the firm. Carl's brother. Now it made sense. It wasn't just abuse of power. It was personal. Family-level embezzlement, engineered from within. David forwarded everything to his legal counsel, but not company legal. He sent it to an independent firm he trusted, with a blunt message. Prepare for executive-level fraud exposure. I want this airtight. An hour later, he got a call. You realize this implicates your own team? I do. They'll push back. Let them. And the board? I'll handle the board. Another pause. You want to go public? David looked down at the thumb drive Raina had sent by courier that morning. It was wrapped in nothing but brown paper, taped simply, with a note inside. I kept watching. Now it's your turn. Yes, he said. Eventually. But not yet. He ended the call. The door knocked. Room service. He opened it, took the tray, closed the door. Didn't touch the food. He stared at the walls. This wasn't what he signed up for when he climbed the ladder. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the people who signed up for power rarely used it for anything that mattered, unless they were forced to look beneath the shine. Mrs. Raina didn't need applause. She needed someone who would listen and act. He plugged the drive in. Hundreds of receipts, photos, timestamps, copies of invoices. Even internal memos she'd quietly printed and saved. One from Carl, dated 14 months ago. Keep these off record. Mark as miscellaneous support. That was enough. David began building the report. Clean. Logical. Bulletproof. He didn't editorialize. He didn't vent. He simply laid out the facts in brutal order. Fraud trail. Names. Connections. Financial routing. Voided oversight. By midnight the file was done. He named it. Raina_report_final.pdf. He didn't add his name. He didn't need to. Because when the board opened it the next day, he wanted them to understand something clearly. This wasn't about whistleblowing. This was about respect. And the reckoning was just beginning. David didn't wait for permission. He walked into the Monday board meeting with a single folder. No presentation. No small talk. Just a printed report, 20 pages thick, marked with one word in bold on the cover, Raina. He handed it to each board member. No one asked questions at first. The room was quiet, almost bored, as if another fiscal review was about to waste their time. Then they started reading. The mood shifted by page 3. By page 7, someone cleared their throat. By page 10, the CFO looked pale. David didn't sit. What you're reading is the summary. There's more. 78 transactions tied to a fake vendor. Cross-departmental fraud. Shell company laundering. And the origin point? Right under our noses. For over a year. No one interrupted him now. This isn't speculation. This isn't a leak. It's documented theft. And it didn't get caught because no one was watching the bottom of the ladder. Because the people who knew better were ignored. The CEO leaned forward. Who else has seen this? Just legal, David replied. Private counsel. No leaks. Yet. The VP of Operations glanced at the exit, visibly uncomfortable. David locked eyes with him. Your name shows up 9 times. Silence. I didn't know. The VP started. You signed. Repeatedly. He shut up. David continued. This isn't just about Carl. It's about rot. It's about a system that let this happen while cutting staff bonuses, freezing salaries, and applauding fake efficiencies. A board member finally spoke. What do you want us to do? David didn't hesitate. Fire them. Today. Freeze their accounts. Initiate recovery. And issue a public audit. Full transparency. You're asking for a scandal, someone else muttered. I'm preventing a collapse, he shot back. The only reason we're not already on the front page is because someone we never thanked was smart enough to notice what the rest of us missed. He let that hang. This company doesn't fall because of theft. It falls because of cowardice. No one argued after that. 3 hours later, 2 executives were escorted out of the building. Carl was subpoenaed. Internal communications went out announcing an immediate ethics overhaul. An anonymous tip line. New audit procedures. A quiet storm sweeping through the halls. David didn't send an announcement. He didn't take credit. Instead, he wrote a short internal memo. Integrity doesn't wear a title. Sometimes it wears an apron and eats alone in the break room. If you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or unimportant, know this. You may be the reason the rest of us survive. He didn't sign it. 2 days later, Raina's drive was returned with a formal thank you note. He included a handwritten message. Your quiet work exposed what louder people ignored. You changed this place without even trying to. She called that night. I saw the news, she said. It was overdue. You didn't have to name the report after me. Yes, I did. Pause. Well, she said, voice soft. I suppose I can finally stop keeping records. David chuckled. I hope not. The world still needs people like you. I just want to visit my sister. Go. I've got the rest. She didn't reply for a second. Then, be careful. People who speak up don't always stay popular. I'm not here to be popular. Then you'll do fine. She hung up. The next week, David walked into the office and found something unexpected in the lobby. A new installation. A wall of portraits, small, framed photographs of long-term staff. Janitors. Lunch servers. Receptionists. Drivers. No fanfare. Just a simple brass plate above it that read, The people who keep us standing. No logo. No signature. Just respect. Later that day, he walked past a few junior employees whispering. That's him, one said. The guy who gave up first class, another replied. He didn't correct them. Let them talk. The truth was simpler than gossip ever was. He gave up a seat for someone who'd carried the weight long before he ever stepped into an office. And in doing so, he finally became someone worth following. 2 months passed. The noise faded. The firings were yesterday's scandal. The press moved on. But the culture didn't forget. Things shifted, subtle at first. Emails grew more cautious. Approval chains tightened. Department heads looked over their shoulders a little more. Not out of fear, but out of awareness. David didn't chase recognition. He didn't post about integrity or justice. He worked. Quietly. Firmly. And when people asked why things felt different, the answer always circled back to one name. Raina. She never returned to the company. No interview. No spotlight. She sent him a thank you card, plain white, one sentence handwritten in blue ink. You didn't let them bury it. That's enough for me. He kept it in his wallet. A month later, an internal survey revealed the highest staff trust rating in company history. Anonymous comments told the real story. Finally feels like someone's watching out for us. Feels human again. Someone noticed the small people. David read them all. Then came the board meeting. Quarterly check-in. Same people, new tension. Everyone expected him to present financials. He didn't. Instead, he slid a single sheet across the table. It was a proposal. The Reina Initiative. A permanent, funded program to recognize and reward support staff. Cleaners. Clerks. Cafeteria workers. Not with plaques, but with decision-making power. A rotating advisory council. A direct reporting line to leadership. Not performative, functional. The board hesitated. One asked, "Won't that complicate operations?" David answered, "Good. Complication is how you stop rot from festering." They approved it. Unanimously. Not because they cared, but because now they knew what happened when no one did. Weeks later, the first advisory council formed. A janitor, a receptionist, a warehouse shift lead, and an IT support tech. They were nervous. Then confident. Then bold. They raised issues no one had ever heard before. David listened to every one. A receptionist flagged a security loophole that had been overlooked for years. Fixed in 2 days. A janitor revealed how outsourced cleaning had led to skip sanitation. Revised immediately. Every time they spoke, someone powerful had to sit down and listen. And it worked. One day, an intern asked David what started it all. Why now? Why bother? He thought about the question for a moment. Then said, "Because one woman in economy class noticed more than our entire leadership team combined." That was enough. But the story wasn't done. Reina called again, months later. Her sister had passed. She didn't cry. Just said it quietly. She went peacefully. Said she was proud of me. David paused. She should be. She also told me I should keep going. Said I always knew how to spot trouble before it turned into a fire. David smiled. She wasn't wrong. I was thinking, Reina continued. Maybe I could consult. Not full-time. Just help others see what I saw. I have a spot for you. You sure? Always. And just like that, she returned. Not to the kitchen. To the conference room. 1 meeting a month. That's all she asked? 1 hour where she'd walk through reports, observe behavior, listen to hallway chatter. And every time she spoke, silence followed. Not out of fear, out of respect. She never raised her voice. Never demanded titles. She just said what others ignored. David watched as the people around him shifted. Less ego. More listening. Mistakes corrected early. Feedback taken seriously. Because Reina had become something rare. Not a symbol. A standard. The kind of presence that forced others to look harder, think deeper, act better. David understood now. Leadership wasn't loud. It wasn't always at the front of the room. Sometimes it sat quietly in the back. Watching. Waiting. Holding people accountable without saying a word. He didn't need a plaque. Or a quote in Forbes. He had the card in his wallet. The look on employees' faces when they realized they mattered. And he had the memory of that one flight. The decision to move from first class to economy. Not out of guilt. But because respect should never need a seat upgrade. That choice changed everything. Not just for him. For everyone.